Thomas Marshall Hahn, Jr., an intellectual and visionary leader who transformed Virginia Tech into a major university. Marshall Hahn received his doctorate in physics when he was only 23, aided, no doubt, by his rare photographic memory. It was the type of achievement that would mark the rest of his life and leave lasting impacts upon the institutions lucky enough to have him at the helm. He was born in Lexington, Kentucky, December 2, 1926, to parents Thomas Marshall Hahn Sr. and Mary Elizabeth Boston Hahn. Marshall Sr. was a physics professor, and the DNA would be passed on to his son. Hahn and his two younger siblings grew up during the Depression, and money was tight. The family moved to Chicago when Marshall was in first grade, and he started school there while his father pursued his Ph.D. Marshall Jr.'s teachers realized that he had a talent for learning, and they advanced him immediately to the second grade. Upon returning to Lexington, Marshall worked hard, delivering papers, working in a florist shop, and tending the family vegetable garden, where the family grew and ate so many green beans, he says, he still doesn't like them. In school, success continued. He knew he wanted to be a scientist or a lawyer, but that didn't stop his teachers from allowing him to skip the 9th and 12th grades. In fact, he never finished high school, but went directly to college. He enrolled at the University of Kentucky at the age of 16, pursuing a degree in physics. As a young man, he made a name for himself as a flyweight boxer and in table tennis. He's long since abandoned the boxing, but is still a formidable ping pong player. By age 18, thanks to an accelerated wartime schedule, Hahn had his bachelor's in physics. He joined the Navy and taught the subject at the Naval Academy Prep School, eventually deciding to pursue a career in physics. It was off then to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but not before he met his future wife, Margaret Louise Peggy Lee of Dinwiddie County, a recent graduate of Madison State Teacher College, now known as James Madison University. The couple would have 3 children, William, Elizabeth, and Anne. At MIT, Hahn thrived under the fast pace and had his Ph.D. by 1950, taking a job at the University of Kentucky as an associate professor. Over the next 4 years, he became a full professor, overseeing graduate studies in physics and the Nuclear Accelerator Laboratory. Then, 4 years later, he accepted a job as head of the physics department at Virginia Polytechnic Institute. Over the next 5 years, enrollment in that department would triple, the result of Hahn's ability to fundraise and the establishment of a master's program and Ph.D. in nuclear engineering. He helped then-President Dr. Walter Newman negotiate $1 million in state funding for a new physics building and obtained $635,000 in research grants. Despite the success, Hahn felt VPI needed more. It was largely restricted to white males. The military system was compulsory for freshmen and sophomores. Hahn would eventually make his mark, but his career called and he moved to Kansas State, where he became the dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. 3 years later, Dr. Hahn had an offer to become president of the University of South Carolina, but VPI made the same offer, and Hahn returned to Blacksburg in 1961, this time as its 11th president. He was only 35 years old. Young and energetic, he toured the state in an airplane called the Hokie Bird. Its tailwing marked VT-272, the number representing the value of E, 2.17828, the base of natural logarithms. He preached the value of higher education to every significant group that would listen. His position was simple: higher education was the key to Virginia's economic growth. His stance led to leadership roles on the American Council on Education and the National Science Foundation. He joined with then-Governor Mills Godwin in support of the state's community college system. Meanwhile, Hahn's plans at VPI took root. He foresaw an opportunity to, quote, stir things up, to build on engineering and agriculture, to create a nationally prominent institution. And he did. During his time as president between 1962 and 74, Hahn oversaw the addition of 33 new academic programs and 3 new colleges, including the flourishing College of Arts and Sciences as well as the College of Veterinary Medicine. Student enrollment nearly tripled, increasing from 6,358 to 17,470 students. He opened enrollment to women and African Americans and saw the first hiring of a black faculty member as well as the graduation of the school's first African American woman. Hahn severed ties with Radford College, eliminated the compulsory military service, and opened the Corps of Cadets to women. He grew the campus as well. During his tenure, facilities such as Lane Stadium, Rector Fieldhouse, and Castle Coliseum opened, as did Kogel Hall, Slusher Hall, and many others. In 1970, he successfully proposed legislation for another big advancement, the school's name change to Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, which would later be shortened to Virginia Tech. In the late 1960s, William Pamplin was chair of the board and president of Georgia Pacific Corporation. Georgia Pacific recruited Dr. Hahn to become a member of their board, and then in 1974, he left Virginia Tech to become CEO and chairman of the board at Georgia Pacific. Under his leadership, sales nearly doubled, from $6.5 to $12.3 billion. Wall Street Transcript named him CEO of the Year for forest products and lumber, and the Gallagher Report listed him twice as being among the 10 best executives in big business. In 1985, President Ronald Reagan appointed him to the President's Export Council. Dr. Hahn retired in 1993, and he and his wife Peggy returned to their 1,000-acre farm in Montgomery County. Still active, he served on the boards of Georgia Pacific, as well as Norfolk Southern, SunTrust Bank, Coca-Cola Enterprises, and the Foundation for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The family commitment to tech included expansion of the horticulture gardens and construction of the pavilion named for Peggy in 2004. 2 buildings, Hahn South and Hahn North, the chemistry and physics buildings, have been named in Dr. Hahn's honor, as has the state-of-the-art practice facility for men's and women's basketball. The latter, evidence of 3 generations of support offered by Dr. and Peggy Hahn, daughter Anne Hahn Hurst, and her late husband Lee, and their son Marshall Hahn Hurst. Writers Warren Struther, former Virginia Tech Director of Information Services, and history professor Peter Wallenstein published a biography on Hahn entitled From VPI to State University in 2004. And looking back, Hahn says, quote, "I've had a long and varied career, but the years at Virginia Tech were our happiest and most fulfilling." Today, at 83, Hahn spends each day with an hour-long custom workout and a 1-mile walk. He's a member of Virginia Tech's President's Circle and charter member of the Ut Prosim Society. His collection of 140 folk art creations has been donated to the High Museum of Art in Atlanta, and his many mounted African big game trophies have been gifted to the Virginia Museum of Natural History. He enjoys antique vehicles and being captain of his yacht, the Paper Tiger. He says life's greatest adventure was traveling the world in 30 days aboard the Concorde, that trip highlighted by a balloon ride over Africa. Meanwhile, the Hahn children and grandchildren have continued the family passion for Virginia Tech. All 3 earned 1 or more degrees from Tech, as did one grandchild. Daughter Betty is an instructor in Appalachian Studies. After 61 years of marriage, Peggy passed away in 2009. But Marshall has found love again and will be married in December to Ms. Jean Quibble. At 83, some might think another marriage remarkable. But for Hahn, it seems like just another step in a non-stop, successful life. Dr. Thomas Marshall Hahn, Jr., the latest laureate in the Junior Achievement Southwest Virginia Business Hall of Fame.